In this video, I'm deconstructing SNL's David S. Pumpkin sketch. My name is Linda and I'm your comedy coach. If you haven't seen the sketch, where the fuck have you been? No, I'm just kidding. Seriously, if you haven't seen the sketch, watch it first, then come back to this video because we're going to break it down and deconstruct why it's funny, and we're going to identify the parts of a sketch that make a sketch work to help you become a better sketch comedy writer. So the sketch begins as any sketch or joke begins, with a setup. We want to set up the scenario of our joke as quickly and efficiently as possible. Why? Because, as someone famous said, I forget his name, brevity is the soul of wit. In sketch, well, in all of comedy, we want to get to the funny as quickly as possible. So the sketch begins with a voiceover. Welcome to 100 Floors of Fright. Voiceovers are really effective ways of setting up both filmed and live sketches. So if you find yourself stuck with how to begin your sketch, how to set it up, try incorporating a voiceover. Just introduce us to the situation that's gonna lead to the funny in your sketch. So we're quickly introduced to the elevator operator and the couple getting on the ride. We also set up the game of the sketch and the funny that's to come by introducing two characters who proclaim that they're probably going to be really frightened by what's to come on this ride. Which, if you've seen the sketch by now, which you should have, you'll know that is certainly not the case. Well, kind of at the end. We'll get to that. So we begin the first beat of the sketch. Remember that sketches usually have 3 beats. 3 is the magic number in comedy. Why? It's the shortest number you need to make, establish, and break a pattern. Think of it this way. You introduce something, you confirm what it is, and then you surprise us. Or set up, reinforce, subvert. We'll get more into this as you watch more of these deconstructing videos. Just remember, 3 is the magic number in comedy. Now, what's great about this first beat is that there's 3 sub beats that are going to lead us to the introduction of the character David S. Pumpkins, because we have first the establishment of the first scary thing, which is the character Winifred Rogers. Then we get to the second subbeat of this first beat, which is the chef with the head on the platter, followed by the third beat, which is David S. Pumpkins. So to tie it back to why 3 is the magic number in comedy, the first floor, Winifred Rogers, establishes the pattern, the setup. The chef with the head on the platter confirms this is the thing that's scary, and this is the reaction we're going to keep expecting from this couple. But then the third thing has got to be a surprise, and that's David S. Pumpkins, who's this wacky character who is very out of place in this ride. We get to the reaction of the couple to David S. Pumpkins, and they wonder and question, why is David S. Pumpkins a part of this ride? Why is he scary? Who is he? Now, their reaction serves a few purposes in terms of guiding the audience along on this sketch. It establishes what is going to be the game of the sketch, which is scary things that aren't actually scary. Remember, game is subjective, so if you want to reword it in a way that works for you, I highly encourage you to, anytime you watch a sketch, identify the game and put it in words that make sense to you. That way you can practice your sketch writing skills by writing another version of the sketch using the same game, which is what we'll do with David S. Pumpkins at the end of this video. Their collective reaction is also considered the voice of reason. The voice of reason in a sketch is the sane or the rational character, and that voice, or those characters, or if it's singular, that character, they represent the voice of the audience, because their reaction is most likely our reaction to seeing David S. Pumpkins as well, right? No one was actually scared of him, right? Think of it this way. If the couple were to have a different reaction, let's say the couple actually got afraid of David S. Pumpkins, that would totally change the joke of the sketch. It would change what is funny. And honestly, it wouldn't be as funny, because while the audience would be wondering, who the hell is this character? The audience, or the couple, would not let us in on the joke because we wouldn't understand why they're afraid. We need a voice of reason in sketches to ground them in reality, because remember, all comedy comes from a place of truth. And when you have these really absurd situations in sketch comedy, the best way to ground them in reality is with an honest emotional reaction. The voice of reason, by questioning the presence of David S. Pumpkins, also lets us in on the joke. And, the thing about sketch comedy, you don't want to hide the joke from the audience. You want to let them in on the joke as soon as possible. We'll see some sketches later on in this series of deconstructing sketches where we use that voiceover. Remember, I talked about the voiceover at the beginning of a sketch and how efficient and helpful it is at setting up a sketch. We're going to look at some examples of sketches where the voiceover names the game of the sketch. Thus, they tell us what the joke is. So all we have to do is sit back and watch it. We don't have to be wondering what is funny about this sketch. We'll get to that though. This carries us into the second beat of the sketch. We're then taken to the floor with the girl from the ring, the voice of reason, again represented by the couple. Their reaction is, well, yes, they're like, yeah, we understand why she's a part of this. She's scary. We get that. Now, after this, we might be expecting a second scary thing because we're following this pattern, right? Not necessarily. We always got to keep the audience on their toes. So we break the pattern established by the first pattern of the first set of sub beats in this sketch by bringing out David S. Pumpkins again. What makes this work is their honest emotional reaction to David S. Pumpkins, which is now heightened. Emotional heightening helps drive the joke home as it reflects the audience's voice and guides our own reaction, especially if we were to place ourselves in that situation. The third subbeat of this second beat seems to deviate from David S. Pumpkins because now we see the character played by Leslie S. Jones. Did I say Leslie S. Jones? I'm thinking of David S. Pumpkins. The character played by Leslie Jones, who is scary at first, but then quickly introduces another appearance by David S. Pumpkins. And again, this breaks the pattern of the pattern, but it's still in line with the game. Our third beat is the skeletons, minus David S. Pumpkins, even if just for a moment, along with some further explanation of the ride consisting of 73 floors of David S. Pumpkins. Our third beat is usually the shortest, and it should lead to the end of your sketch, which should end with a button. That's just the term that we use, and we call it a button because it's like you're not finding a conclusion to your sketch. It's like you're just doing your top button. You're just adding a little button to the end. And what this is going to do is you're going to find a joke that is in line with the game of the sketch. But again, you want to surprise us and take us in a different direction. Like I said, we're not looking for a conclusion to this story. We don't need to know what's going to happen to all these characters at the end of the sketch. What we want to do is just conclude the pattern on a surprising note. The button sort of polishes. It's like when we do that final button, when we're getting ready, it kind of polishes our look. And that's all we're really trying to do with this sketch. Just give it one more little something to leave the audience with an even bigger laugh, if possible. So when David S. Pumpkins appears from behind the couple, what actually happens here? The couple finally gets afraid because finally, for once, they weren't expecting him to pop out from behind them. And this final joke subverts the game of the sketch because, like I said, it was things that are scary that aren't actually scary or something like that. But now that thing that wasn't actually scary finally becomes scary in a very honest and truthful way. So let's sum up what we've covered here and recap the 5 parts of a sketch. And for more on what I mean by the 5 parts of a sketch, I encourage you to check out, this is a shameless plug, I encourage you to check out my Intro to Comedy course. It's an online class on Udemy, I don't know how we say it these days, but it's pretty moderately cheap, I think. Although if you have some economic issues and you want to take it for free, send me a message on TikTok and I can hook you up with a coupon code. And That way, if you want more on the 5 parts of a sketch and you want to get to it right away, that's the best way to do it. But I'm going to go ahead and just sum up the 5 parts of this sketch right now. So first we have the setup. The setup, like I said, is the voiceover at the beginning of the sketch that introduces the ride and the scenario, because we are introduced to the couple and the other characters on this ride as well. The conflict arises when they are introduced to David S. Pumpkins and they don't know who he is or why he's on this ride. The word conflict in comedy can, well, in real life, the word conflict implies some like serious dilemma. In comedy, the funniest conflicts are like the simplest conflicts. So they don't have to be these big, like, life altering, decisions to make. A conflict can be as simple as, just trying to, I'm thinking of another SNL sketch that I really love. Liza Minnelli tries to turn off a lamp. That's a conflict. All she's trying to do is turn off a lamp, but she can't. Okay. So it can be very small problems. In fact, the smaller the issue, the more fun, the more room there is to make fun of it and to have more fun in your sketch. Then we got to establish the game. The third part of a sketch, and very important part of your sketch, is game. Like I said, a game is a pattern. In sketch comedy, a game is a pattern of unusual behavior that heightens. I deconstruct TikToks as well on my TikTok channel, Your Comedy Coach. And something I've noted about what's different about doing sketch comedy on TikTok is that you don't necessarily have to heighten your game. A lot of the funniest TikToks, you establish a game and you just play the game. It's like the stitch feature. Someone establishes a game and then you stitch that person's video with your version of game, and then someone else stitches your video with their version of the game, etc., etc. To test how well we understand, first of all, let me sum up the game of this sketch. As I already stated, I would summarize the game as a character who doesn't belong. To test how well we understand the game, we come up with a second sketch featuring the same character. Well, you don't have to necessarily feature the same exact characters, but since this is a character sketch, which again, I talk about the different types of sketch in my Intro to Comedy online course, this is a character sketch, so we would want to see a second sketch featuring David S. Pumpkins, and we would want to play the same game. So to test whether or not we have a solid understanding of the game, we're going to come up with a second David S. Pumpkins sketch. So I would pitch, maybe it's a movie premiere of some like really big Hollywood horror movie, like The Conjuring or, I don't know, Black Phone. These are movies that are out right now as I'm thinking about this. And David S. Pumpkins makes an appearance either on the red carpet or in the movie somehow. And his appearance prompts confusion from the audience, etc. Maybe we're actually watching the scary movie, and maybe there's like press, they're watching the scary movie and there's actual scary bits, and then all of a sudden David S. Pumpkins pops out and they're like, why is everyone afraid? Who the fuck is this guy? Something like that. But by all means, come up with your own version. The fourth part of a sketch is heightening. Heightening is important because without it, we're just seeing one note of the same joke, and it can become a little tiresome, at least in the format of television or the stage. Like I said, for social media or TikTok, where people have short attention spans and we're just checking our phones during our work breaks or whatever, it's a little different. We don't have to necessarily heighten. You can, and there's many TikToks that heighten and work really well, but you don't necessarily have to. However, if we're writing sketch for the stage or for a longer filmed format, then yes, they should. Think of your job as a sketch writer as throwing gasoline on the fire representing the game. Heightening is really easy to spot wherever there is a heightened emotional reaction. That's why I talk so much about the couple's honest emotional reaction. That is the heightening of the sketch, because if not, we're just seeing David S. Pumpkins just pop out in different places on the ride. But their reaction grows more angry and confused the more he appears. And I think this is where I really love Beck Bennett's performance in this sketch, because his reaction is very honest and very hilarious. The interactions between Beck Bennett and Kate McKinnon's character are also a good example of another concept I talk about in my online class, which is the straight man versus the crazy one. You see this in a lot of buddy comedy. You've got one character who's very grounded in reality, and then you've got one that's like really crazy. A good example of this is Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool being the crazy one, Wolverine being the straight man. The job of the straight man is to set up the crazy one for punchlines. There is no punchline without a setup. So, setup, punchline, straight man, crazy person. If heightening is throwing gas on the fire, the straight man is the one throwing it, basically. Finally, we have the final and fifth part of a sketch, the button. The button is what we call the end of the sketch, and it's one final joke. If you can end it with a surprising twist, that's what we're really aiming for, and it makes for the most satisfying sketch comedy endings. And this sketch, I believe, really nails the ending in that sense, because David S. Pumpkins finally achieves what he was unable to achieve this whole time. He finally scares this couple. Not because he's actually scary, but because they weren't expecting him to pop out from behind them. And that's your sketch breakdown of David S. Pumpkins from Saturday Night Live. Now that we've deconstructed the David S. Pumpkins sketch, I urge you to practice your sketch writing skills by writing a follow-up sketch featuring David S. Pumpkins. Your creativity's the limit. I would love for you to pitch me your ideas in the comments below. If you have any questions, any suggestions, any sketches you would like to see deconstructed on this channel, let me know in the comments as well. I'm here to help you learn comedy without having to spend the hundreds and thousands of dollars that I spent on my comedy education, because my God, YouTube is a great platform to learn shit for free. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, follow me on TikTok, Your Comedy Coach, and also turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next time I drop a video, and comment below what you would like to see next. I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.